But your family can get a head start by watching the prequel to the film, Young David, which is streaming exclusively right now.
There you go. Ring the bell. That bell's ring. Oh, Eris mining stocks. Interesting. Mining stocks are getting a new life with gold and silver absolutely rocking lately. Let's take a look at the markets, shall we? Dow's down about 275 points. Earlier, it was unchanged up to a little bit, and then right before the market opened, Walmart came out with earnings. Ran at some point. When you attack an oil-producing nation, oil prices go up. When you attack an oil-consuming nation, oil prices go down. That's how it works. Oil up another $1.60, $1.55. Gold up 11, nothing major. And crypto kind of floundering around at the $66,000, $67,000 level, folks.
The Somali waltz. It's the same old song.
All right, so we did there. Our first guest has introduced a groundbreaking bill to halt Somali immigration for, listen to this, for 25 years, called the Somalia Immigration Moratorium Act, SIMA. We'll call it SIMA. This bill is in direct response to the failure of Somali immigrants to assimilate into American society, in addition to the abuse of federal benefits program and fraud, which has cost taxpayers. I'm not saying Minnesota taxpayers. I'm saying U.S. taxpayers, including Minnesota, of course. Taxpayers north of $19 billion. Happy to have Congressman Brandon Gill with us today. Congressman, bill is exactly what's needed to put American citizens first. Get this, folks. Brandon Gill says 81% of Somali households in Minnesota are on welfare. $19 billion went out the door. Sir, tell us about the bill.
Well, the bill is simple, and I think it's predicated on a basic principle, which is that our immigration system is designed, its sole purpose is to benefit American citizens. There's no other reason that it exists. We get to choose, or we should choose, who comes into our country, and that should be based on what makes the United States stronger, what makes our communities more prosperous. And that's not what's happening. And in fact, that hasn't been what's happening for several decades now. And I think the Somali community, as we've seen over the past several weeks, is a perfect example of that. So you have a group of people who have come into the United States really over the past 3 decades or so. If you go back in American history, there were virtually no Somalis in the United States in 1990. So this is fairly recent. And yet, if you look at the people who have come in, not only are 81% of them on welfare, but even after being in the United States for 10 years or longer, 78% of Somali immigrants in Minnesota are on welfare. Furthermore, if you ask yourself, are these people coming in assimilating into American culture? The answer is no. And I think a good proxy for assimilation is ability to speak English. And the reality is that 50%, roughly about half of the Somali immigrants in Minnesota, even after being in the U.S. for 10 years or longer, do not speak English very well. That is a real cultural problem in the United States. We brought in a lot of people. We need to allow our society, our civilization to cohere, to assimilate, to become one people, all of us, that we can all become fully American, and that's not happening. So I introduced this bill that would ban immigration from Somalia. For 25 years, I think that is a very fair and moderate response to what is, I think, a serious crisis, not only from the welfare fraud, but simply from the fact that there are so many people in this country that have not assimilated and need to.
Congressman, it's a great idea. A couple of questions. 25 years, some will say, is that a little bit, is it too much? Listen, I'm on board. We've been preaching this for I've been doing it since I've been on television. You want to come to this country, great. We like people to emigrate and immigrate. We want to vet you, but we also want you to assimilate to our way of life. And it strikes me right now what's going on in New York City with now this Muslim call to prayer ringing up the streets, down the streets of Manhattan, drives us crazy. We have people now in the administration in New York saying remove dogs from the homes because that's not what they do in Muslim countries. Question is 25 years too long, or should we just tighten up how we allow people into the country?
Well, I think, first of all, I think if anything, 25 years is too short. I think that's a moderate response to a pretty severe problem here. But I do think we should also tighten up who is coming into our country. Again, the purpose of this should be to choose who comes into American society and will benefit us, benefit our people. Bringing in lots of people from cultures that are unassimilable and incompatible with our own, whether it's from Somalia or from other parts of the Islamic world, for instance, as you alluded to, I think is idiotic and suicidal. The reality is that not all cultures are equal, and not all cultures are equally compatible with our governing framework. And I think our immigration policy ought to recognize that. And ought to recognize those basic truths that it should be in our power to determine who comes into our society. That is a core part of American sovereignty.
Of course,
even.
Of course.
And I think that's something
begs
that
the question, Congressman, begs the question, what about, in some of the biggest Muslim countries putting people into this country, into America, Indonesia, Pakistan, of course, Somalia, Tunisia, Libya. They're coming from many different countries. Maybe it's not a bad idea just to slap a moratorium on for now and say, look what's going on in Minneapolis. Don't blame us. You're the ones who are coming over here breaking our laws.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we need to drastically reduce immigration into the country, and it ought to be only from countries that are culturally compatible that can benefit us. The reality is to use Islamic migration as an example, a very good example, is that you have civilizations or ways of life that are fundamentally incompatible with the West, that do not comport with our constitutional system. So we have very different conceptions, for example, of freedom of religion than the Islamic world does, very different conceptions of freedom of speech, very different conceptions of how we treat women and women's role in society than the Islamic world does. And we ought to recognize that. And I think for that reason alone, I think it is entirely reasonable for us to say that we do not want to tolerate mass migration from those civilizations. In other words, there was a basic principle in immigration law for many years until about the 1960s. That if you were to come into the country, one, you could not be what's called a public burden, which means that you cannot come into the country and hop on welfare and expect the American people to pay for your food and your housing and your medical care and other welfare. But two, there was a standard of cultural assimilation, is that you were expected to come in and become fully American. And that, by the way, that's a process that oftentimes takes a lot of time, several decades sometimes. And right now, I think that process has been stalled because immigration has been so high. Again, this is not about disliking or distrusting anybody. It's about loving our people in our country.
A couple of thoughts here. One of them being, specifically Somalia, it's a governmentless country. I mean, there's no law and order in Somalia, right. And so, but again, there are those. And listen, I'm for more immigration. You may be for less. I just want it done the right way. I just think in order to support with healthcare and with some of our social systems, the only way we can as an economy continue to support an aging population is with literally new blood, but it's got to be vetted properly. I'm just not one of those who say don't let anyone in yet. We need that. Our birth rates are going down. They're plummeting. Look what's going on in Japan. We need immigration and emigration, but legal and done properly, well vetted. Congressman Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman from Minnesota, unbelievably may have married her own brother for immigration, somehow figured out a way to come here with no money in her pocket, and in a few 6 short years or so has accumulated a net worth of $30 million plus with her husband. No one can really figure out how. She was also very protective of CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, who are honestly an unindicted co-conspirator to 9/11, and has basically said, I report to the people of Somalia, not necessarily the people of Minnesota. Your thoughts on Ilhan Omar? What should happen?
Yeah, I mean, this is somebody who immigrated into the country and has been given so many gifts of living in the greatest country in the world, where you can immigrate in and become ultimately a United States congresswoman. And what is her response to that? Her response is to routinely denigrate all of the things that make America great, all of the things that gave her the opportunity to become a congresswoman in the first place, not least of which is the American people themselves, who she routinely describes as racist or bigoted or has some deep-seated moral problem with. So I think that she is not only ungrateful, but a particularly despicable type of person. I think that there are a lot of questions about how she came into the United States, about this marriage, about some of the business dealings that she has currently, and those are questions that we need answers to. But I do think, to put it bluntly, I think that she is sort of a good case study, a good example of why immigration should be more restrictive.
You're a relatively new congressman, but I've been doing this for the better part of 30 years, 20 on TV. It strikes me that people in Congress get in trouble sometimes, like Ilhan Omar. No proof yet, but if it's proved or funny business, and there's a censorship which is like a slap on the wrist for the regular man watching this show right now. It's basically saying, don't do that anymore or else. Nothing ever really happens in the swamp of D.C. Are you there as a new congressman to maybe create some change and hold your own body, your own caucus accountable?
I think so. We voted on a censorship resolution for Congresswoman Omar, and unfortunately it failed. I obviously voted for that resolution. To your point, that is candidly not a huge deal. There's not a whole lot of teeth to a censorship resolution. All it does is say that it is the view of the House of Representatives that this person needs to be censured or did something wrong. But there are investigations that are going on the House Oversight Committee, which I sit on, about some of the business dealings that Ilhan Omar and her husband have been engaged in, and those are we're at sort of the early stages of that investigation. But we do want real answers here. We do want actual accountability. If she did nothing wrong, then fine. But if she did, the American people want answers, and they want actual justice. Mm-hmm.
All right, sir, we're being told you got to run, you got to go to a vote. I really appreciate your time. Sorry about holding you over. Hope your comms people aren't mad at us. We'd love to get you back as things go. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman Brendan Gill from the great state of Texas, Texas 26, if I'm not mistaken. Keep it up, my friend, and we'll get you back soon.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we'll be back. 2.5 minutes.
It's the same old song. The Somali waltz. It's sad but true.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
There's a light I've always followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer. In the moments I'm afraid, there's a whisper in the wind and a story in the sky. When I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling alive, you gotta follow the light. Follow the light.
For those who love great animated classics like The Lion King and Prince of Egypt, David is an awe-inspiring animated musical that depicts David as a spirited boy who fought lions, giants, and even betrayal, depicting how one boy's faith could lead him to be king of Israel. David will be released in theaters just in time for Christmas on December 19th, but your family can get a head start by watching the prequel to the film, Young David, which is streaming exclusively right now.
Hey, folks, are you worried about what's in your water? Well, you absolutely should be. You know, nationwide testing shows that high levels of harmful contaminants and dangerous chemicals are in our drinking water in every single state, coast to coast. Matter about, well, installing a whole house water filtration system is a great way to be proactive and protect your family from these harmful and sometimes cancer-causing chemicals in our drinking water. Freedom Whole House Water Systems, made right here in America, is the world's best whole house water filtration system there is. Maintenance-free means no salt to add, no filters to change ever. Just clean alkaline water from every faucet in your house. And now's a great time to get one. Scan the barcode or go to their website at freedomwatersystems.com and put in promo code SKIP26, SKIP26, to get $1,000 off your Freedom Whole House Water Filtration System today. Alrighty, folks. Iran has expanded a network of unregistered detention facilities called black boxes that are operating outside of its official prison system, where people are being held without charges, denied lawyers and family contact. They're erased from all judicial records. These prisoners are enduring extreme isolation, torture, and psychological abuse, according to my next guest. Here to discuss is the Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Ali Reza Jafarzadeh. Ali, really good to have you. Tell us these black boxes, and I don't know if we set that up right. These black boxes are being used for the recent protesters. Is that where they're coming from? Those are the people that they're putting in. Tell us about these boxes as well.
Exactly. Well, you know, when the protests started late December and leading into January, there were so many, in addition to thousands and thousands of people being slaughtered and murdered in the streets of various cities, in about 400 cities in all 31 provinces of Iran. They also arrested a large number of them, which is larger than any other prior protests. Over 50,000 protesters have been arrested. Now, the families of those have been searching for them, trying to find out about their whereabouts, what is happening to them. The Iran regime is threatened that they will be charged with waging war on God, which is, according to the regime's own system, is punishable by death. But there are a lot of them that their location are unknown outside of the regular prison system that they have. You know, there are known prisons in Tehran and other cities, but they have started operating these secret sites, what they call, black boxes, that nothing is recorded. There's no record of them. And what it does, it actually gives the Iran regime an additional ability to do whatever they want to do to these prisoners, including killing them, torturing them, and then they wouldn't be held accountable. It also helps them evade leaks, because once you have people in their regular system, there are people who know about it. There could be leaks. People could find out about it. And this is the same operation they used in the 1980s in Ghazal Hassan prison. The prisoners would go missing and no one would know about them for years. And later on, you find out that they were held in smaller places. Some of them look like houses, but they were held there with the Revolutionary Guards there, undergoing all kinds of torture.
Allow me just to cut in for a second, folks. I want you to see that this is President Trump touring a manufacturing plant in Rome, Georgia, right now as we speak. We're not here. Are we hearing from him? All right, let's take a listen.
Tariffs, and now he's going round the clock, making the racks, making the steel, making everything that he makes. And it's just amazing what's happened, that anybody can be complaining about tariffs. He just said, I'd give you a big hug if the press wasn't out here, because the tariffs have really been a big difference.
It's been a game changer. We were competing with China. They had taken all of it. They were producing racks at $90 a piece. Our cost alone is $150. You've leveled it. The playing field's back.
So when I came in and we did what we had to do to save all these businesses, you went through the roof, right?
We did. Our quotes, our orders, we're so busy now, we don't know what to do. My lead time now on an order is 36 weeks. We were at a point in time with our racks division, we were laying off workers. We were working one shift, 3 days a week, begging for work. Now It's the exact opposite.
Then he's turning work down.
We're turning work down, which is a position that nobody wants to be in, but it's the reality of what your tariffs have done.
Honestly, you've got thousands of businesses all over the country the same. We've taken it away. They were ripping us off. Every country in the world was ripping us off. And to think that we have to be before the Supreme Court on a thing like this. Here's a man virtually going out of business, and now he's got a thriving business, hiring people, can't get enough people. And it's all because of tariffs. I had Novartis come in yesterday, a big drug company. They're building 11 factories, 11 drug plants for prescription drugs in the United States. I said, why are you doing that? He said, one reason, tariffs. And we have to be between the Supreme Court with China-centric people suing us, people from China suing us. They're all China-centric, and people from outside of our country to get rid of tariffs, and it's making our country rich, and it's a disgrace that we even have to talk about this subject. That's like men playing in women's sports. It's like, the tariff is the greatest thing that's happened to this country. We're making a fortune, but more importantly, all of these factories are booming now, and they were all dead. All right, I hope you take it down. I hope you show them that we have to be, seriously, that we have to be before the Supreme Court of the United States to justify tariffs, which are making every one of these businesses thrive. And without them, all these buildings are closed, like they have been before I got here. Thank you very much.
Let's move back. Let's move back.
All right, folks, that's President Trump in Rome, Georgia at Coosa Steel. It's a steel manufacturing facility, steel beams, steel mesh, fabricated steel parts and whatnot, and all made in the USA. Good news for U.S. domestic manufacturers. All right, we're back with Ali Reza. Ali, just if we only have a couple of minutes left, sir, I apologize. Trump took a bit into our soundbite, our time. This massive show of force that we're accumulating, two aircraft carriers plus all the warships around it, and I'm told it's the largest fighter jet posse that we've aligned anywhere since the Gulf War. Tell us what you think is going to happen and maybe when.
Honestly, I have no clue, no information about that, but I think what signals is that the world is fed up with the Iranian regime and their terrorism. They're developing nuclear weapons and killing their own people. At the end of the day, whatever the outside world does, the real solution is actually change of the regime in Iran by the people of Iran. That's what we need to see on the ground, and that doesn't require boots on the ground or anything like that. I want to tell the American public to know that even though the regime killed thousands of people during the recent protests, but that has further even solidified the determination of a nation who have concluded that there's only one way to end the killings, and that's ending the rule of the clerics by the people of Iran. We've seen a lot of the young people concluding that they need to organize among themselves to confront the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. There are resistance units in Iran by the MEK, with the same movement that exposed these nuclear sites, that are working day and night. They were very active during the uprising, and their goal is to confront the Revolutionary Guards and affect change in Iran.
You know, all right, so true, and we watch the oil market up 2 days in a row of almost $3 or $4 a barrel in 2 days in expectation of some sort of activity in Iran. So, Ali, we'll bring it back if we do hear more or if something happens. I heard as soon as maybe even Saturday. Hopefully not, but we'll see what happens. Ali Reza Jafarzadeh, Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Eric.
Okay, great. All right, guys, we dropped, I would say this is the best episode of The Edge yet. Grant Cardone. Here's a guy who, you know what The Edge is about? When you fall down, do you have what it takes to pick yourself back up? Grant Cardone spent 10 years a drug addict. He talks about it. Almost lost his family, his life, his baseball career, and now a billionaire. Here's a little soundbite.
I was a drug addict for 10 years of my life, Eric, and I used drugs every day for 10 years. Tried to quit for 10 years, dude, like I was a loser, bro. And when I would go to these drug addicts meetings, and they would be like, ego is, because they said I was going to stumble because of my ego. And they're like, ego means edging God out. I'm like, bruh, like, my ego needs me to demonstrate what God gave me. And I'm not doing that. I've been failing for 10 years. Like, you guys can come up with all your little fucking acronyms if you want to, but the reality is God has given me a bunch of gifts, as I believe God has given everyone, and I'm not using them.
I apologize for that. We were going to bleep that out. QR code, put it up there, put the screen up there, hit your phone, your camera right to it. You can drop that banner, guys. Come on. If not, go to youtube.com/@EricBollingTheEdge, youtube.com/@EricBollingTheEdge, or you can search it in Google. I want you to, this is a great show. A little bit later in the show, I'm going to give you another bite talking about Grant Cardone, some of his amazing investment advice and thoughts. That's a little bit later in the show. We'll be back 2.5 minutes.
They feed you headlines, cut the frame, say it loud enough, call it fact. Change the words, dodge the blame, sell the lie, then double back.
From Real America's Music, the label that brought you Anthem of the Free, The Boss, and Somali Waltz, comes a brand new anthem built for a distrustful age. Truth Bomb by the Truth Bombers. Talks about distrust of institutions, media manipulation, shifting government narratives, big tech censorship, cancel culture, and ideological silencing. The culture needs a truth bomb, and this track delivers. Pre-save it now. Scan the QR code or search Truth Bomb by the Truth Bombers on iTunes. We've broken records before. Let's do it again together.
The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
All right, let's bring in the next guest. He is Jonathan Cain. He's a member of the super rock band Journey, one of the best bands ever to walk the face of this earth. Jonathan Cain, welcome to Real America's Voice. Welcome to the Bowling Show. And we hear you have a new song out and an LP maybe in a bit, but only a prayer away. Sir, tell us about this new journey for you, so to speak.
Well, it's not actually new. I've been making worship music now for 10 years, believe it or not. This is probably my 6th release. I started 10 years ago with an album called What God Wants to Hear. And so I continue to write, songs the Lord tells me to write. I'm sort of, this is Faith in Action, pretty much album. It has to do with what I see God's doing on the planet and God's people doing, amazing things because of his leadership. So that's kind of what I decided to do. And this song came from a infomercial from Pastor Greg Laurie. I don't know if you remember You know who he is? The Jesus Revolution guy. He's famous. He's at the White House one day, and I saw his infomercial, and I started writing a song. So I finished a lyric and showed it to him. He liked it. I finished it. I sent it to him. And next thing, he was evangelizing with it. He had it on his radio station, and people were...
All right, we're starting to have to break into that. We have President Trump again in Rome, Georgia. He was at Coosa Steel. See where he is right now. Here we go.
Across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. It's great to see a vibrant place like this. As you know, about a year and a half ago, it wasn't so vibrant. I'm looking at all this brand new steel and equipment that just went up because of our tariffs, because of our president, but because of our tariffs. And I'm thrilled to be back in the great state of Georgia with the men and women of an incredible American company, the Coosa Steel Corporation. For more than 50 years, the hardworking Americans at Coosa Steel have poured out their sweat and blood and tears to turn into what, look, you wanted to take raw material and you wanted to take beautiful metal and you wanted to turn it into the highest quality steel racks and plates in the business, all stamped with those really beautiful words. You don't see it too much, but now you do again, made in the USA. Right? And this company prospered and grew from humble beginnings in a Georgia manufacturing. What happened is you became, in a very short while, a Georgia manufacturing giant. But then you watch your core business start to fade. I just spoke to your great owner, and he's great, but he got hit by stupid politicians, basically, making specialized steel tire racks dwindle from 2 bustling shifts to 6 days a week down to 1 shift and 1 hour. 1 hour a week. Then you went back up to 2 days, then you went back to 3 days, then you went back to 1 day, then you went down to 1 hour. Because all the business was going to China and other countries from outside. And it wasn't only here, it was other plants also. I assume your friends, likewise, were having the same problem. Your jobs were being stolen as foreign nations dumped their subsidized products. Don't forget China, these other countries, they pay for it. It's all subsidized. You don't get too much subsidy. But they dropped the subsidized products on our market to try and put Americans out of business, and that's what they were doing. You're lucky you have a man that is so proud of this place. He kept it going, barely kept it going. It wasn't easy. You're a lucky guy. But now, thanks to the fact that we got elected on November 5th, and thanks to what I call the Trump tariffs, business at Coosa Steel is booming again. We just spoke, it's booming. And in October, you received your first large order for tire racks since 2014. It was a big, massive order. In fact, this great man right here thought that they made a mistake. He said it can't be possible. No, it's called tariffs. I said, my favorite word in the whole dictionary is tariff, and I got in trouble with, look at all the fake news back there. Look at them. I got in trouble. No, I got in trouble with them because I said, tariff is my favorite word in the whole dictionary. This, or what about family? What about God? What about wife, children? I said, all right, it's my fifth favorite word. Now I'm okay. They've treated me okay since I did that. They didn't like it but it's my fifth favorite word in the dictionary. You're back to producing at full speed, 2 shifts a day, and he's going to 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week. And you've got a backlog now that's 7 months long. What a difference. From a couple of hours a week to 7 months long. And it's all because you finally have a president who put America first. That's what it is. But it's also because I imposed powerful 50% tariffs on foreign steel where they were coming in and dumping crap all over our country. I ended every one of the Biden-era exemptions, and on August 18th, I added new tariffs to cover 400 derivative products, including steel racks, which is what you make. So I say congratulations, and what a great comeback. This is a comeback that 2 years ago, right, you were almost, I don't want to say out of business, but you were almost out of business. I guess he said you can say it. You were close. He was borderline. Started telling his wife, let's have tuna fish tonight, darling. Forget about the steak. But stories like this companies are right now playing out in cities all around the country, towns, villages, all over the country. And to think I have to be in the United States Supreme Court for many, many months waiting for a decision on tariffs. Without tariffs, this country would be in such trouble right now. Without tariffs, this country would be like your company was 2 years ago. What a difference it made. And you know who brought the cases against us? People that are China-oriented, people that have business in China that want to rip us off and keep ripping us off, and the tariffs had stopped us. And not only China, other countries too. People from other countries like Canada and others, they sue us. Canada has ripped us off for years. Not anymore, they're not. And I'm waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court. Can you imagine? We have to wait. I mean, I just heard the story today, and I've told it 1,000 times. I don't think I've ever heard it any better. I even took him back to the fake news where he related the story, that he was in serious trouble. There was no business. There was no business anywhere. How was this place 2 or 3 years ago? It was not just here, the whole area. It was a disaster. And now it's vibrant. And we have to justify this because people come from other countries because they ripped us off for 50 years. And now we're doing the same thing to them. And we're being very modest about it, right, Howard? We're being very modest about it. We could go a lot further if I want to. Because what they've done to us, other countries, what they've done, they almost put us out of business. And I'll tell you, if I didn't win this election, and if you had a moron like Kamala or a moron like Sleepy Joe Biden, if you had these people back, our country would have been finished. We wouldn't have had a country. So just yesterday, I was visited by the CEO of the drug company, Novartis, and his name is Baz, first name, great guy. And he came into the White House to see our great chief of staff, who happens to be with us. Where's Susie? Susie's with us someplace. She is great. First female chief of staff and the best chief of staff. And she wanted to bring him in. It's a big, very big company, all based outside of this country. And she wanted to bring him in, so I said, come on. So I said, hello, how are you doing? How's it going? Sir, I'm building 11 plants in the United States. I said, that's a lot. How many do you have? None. But we're moving almost all our business into the United States. And I said, why are you doing that? Tariffs. Tariffs. Can you believe it? He said tariffs. And I got to be before a court. In sports, transgender for everybody. I have a new one to add, voter ID. The Democrats don't want to give us voter ID because they want to cheat. The only way they can cheat is if they, look, we can stop them so easy. You know what they say? We don't want voter ID because it's racist. Okay? That's a good one. It's racist, no. I'll tell you what, when they look at the polls, 95% of the people want voter ID. Then you have proof of citizenship. So we want voter ID. We want proof of citizenship. For you to vote, let's prove that you're an American. So please, proof of citizenship. They're fighting that. They're fighting that. And then we don't want to have mail-in ballots where they're mailed in from all parts of the place. Mail-in ballots are crooked as hell. We're the only country in the world that use this type of mail-in ballot, the only country in the world. I'll tell you what, Republicans have to win this one. We'll never lose a race. For 50 years, we won't lose a race. We want voter ID. We want proof of citizenship. And we don't want mail-in ballots except for the military far away, except for people that are ill, disabled, or people that are away. Even for a vacation, we'll be generous, okay? Other than that, we don't want mail-in ballots because mail-in ballots, they cheat. Without tariffs, what would you do? You know what? Everybody would be bankrupt, everybody. The whole country would be bankrupt. And I have to wait for this decision. I've been waiting forever, forever. And the language is clear that I have the right to do it as president. I have the right to put tariffs on for national security purposes, countries that have been ripping us off for years. You know what they're doing? Using tariffs. What a country. So sad. So just 1 year ago, under crooked Joe Biden, and he was crooked as hell, our country was dead. Now we have the hottest country. In 1 year, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world, right, Kelly? Remember when I used to say, Fuller sort of reminded me, I listened to your speech, very good. I'm endorsing that man, by the way, very strongly. I actually listened to your speech back there, and you said, you remember when the president used to tell the story about getting tired of winning? You reminded me, I haven't told that story in a long time. You're gonna be so tired of winning, you're gonna be exhausted, you're gonna get tired of winning. Remember I say, your governor or Kelly Loeffler, somebody's gonna come up and say, President, please, we're winning too much, we're not used to it. Georgia's not used to it, we can't take it anymore. People are working too hard, they're making too much money. Please, we don't want to win anymore, sir, it's too much. I said, nope, we're gonna keep on winning. The people of Georgia want to win. I'm sorry, Kelly, the people of Georgia want to win. Last week it was announced that the United States added 172,000 jobs in the private sector. We reduced you know, if I wanted to have really great job numbers, don't do any cutting in the public sector. You know, I cut off 300,000-400,000 jobs in the public sector, and then I add many more than that in the private sector. And you know, those public sector people that got cut, they hated me, and now they love me, because they've all gone out and gotten much better paying jobs in the private sector. They're working right. Manufacturing jobs in Georgia alone. And we've had a very good relationship with Georgia. And as factory construction gets underway, we've created 70,000 new construction jobs right here, 70,000. And you know what they're building? Factories like this. Like this. I said to that brilliant person right there, I see the yellow steel. You know what that is? That's a crane, brand new. I said, how long has that been here? He said, about 2 months. He said, tariffs brought it here, sir. Your policy brought it here. So today, more Americans in the prime of their life are part of a labor force that at any time since 2001, and then you could go back another 25 years from that, and more Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. Think of that statement. Any time in the history of our country, there are more Americans working today. In 4 years, Sleepy Joe Biden got less than $1 trillion of new investment into the United States. So in 4 years, he got a lot less than $1 trillion. But with our pro-American economic growth and the use of tariffs, we've already secured commitments for over $18 trillion. So think of this. In 11 months, because we haven't even gotten to last month, in 11 months, we have $18 trillion worth of investment coming into this country. And here's an example of it. Nice family, by the way. That's better looking than your crane. I like the family better than the crane. Very good. But a good family. The stock market has set 53 all-time record highs since the election. 53, think of that. 53 days it was at an all-time record, adding $9 trillion in value. But you got to go back for a second. So we do over 18 trillion in 11 months, and Sleepy Joe, for 4 years, did much less than $1 trillion. Think of that. This country would have been dead. Adding $9 trillion in value to your savings. I added $9 trillion, and your retirement accounts and 401ks are at the highest level they've ever been. And then I have to listen to the fake news talking about affordability. Affordability. Do you notice? What word have you not heard over the last 2 weeks? Affordability. Because I've won. I've won affordability. I had to go out and talk about it. But we inherited a mess. We inherited the worst inflation in history. But I'd like to correct it, because it's actually, the fake news corrected me. He exaggerated. He said it was the worst inflation in history, and it's only 48 years. So I apologize for that, Kelly. I apologize. So it's the worst inflation in 48. Actually, I think they're wrong. I think it is actually in history. We had the worst inflation in history under Sleepy Joe Biden. He was sleeping while you were working. No, he was sleeping while you were trying to get a job. You weren't working. And now we have the most people working in history. And just recently we crossed 2 milestones. They thought it was totally impossible when the S&P hit 7,000 points and Dow Jones surged past 50,000. Again, I was supposed to do that within 4 years. They said he's got a small possibility. I don't know how many of you people watch the stock market, but if the stock market's good, that's good for everybody. That's good for you, good for everybody. But the stock market hit over 50,000 for the first time in history. They said maybe he might be. This is right after my election in November. They said, you know, Trump's a great businessman. He might be able to get 50,000 by the time his term finishes. No, we did it, Howard, in 1 year. 1 year. Under the last administration, every economic policy punished American workers and businesses like this one, while rewarding those who outsource to foreign nations. Under the Trump administration, our policy is the exact opposite, making it harder to outsource while rewarding those who invest, hire, grow, and build right here in the USA. We don't have countries coming in and stealing our businesses anymore. They were coming in for many years. I had it stopped in my first term. We had a great first term. We had the greatest economic numbers we've ever had until now. But this term, I will say, it's blowing my first term away. We've slashed a record number of job-killing regulations, cutting 129 old regulations for every one new regulation approved. Think of that. So we approve one, and we cut 129. And what that means is jobs. That's all it means. We ended the radical left war in American energy. Now oil production is up by more than 600,000 barrels a day, and natural gas production is at an all-time high. Plus, we have a great relationship with a country named Venezuela. You've heard about Venezuela? And we're helping them very much with their oil. They get a lot of oil, we do too, but we're helping them a lot. We took 50 million barrels of oil is right now floating very nicely in extremely large ships to Houston, where it's processed. And it's going to be great for Venezuela. The president's doing an excellent job, getting along great. But that was a very strong attack, would you say? It was a very strong attack. That wasn't like Jimmy Carter. That wasn't like Sleepy Joe Biden in Afghanistan, where he had no idea, had no clue what he was doing. Take the equipment. You know, I was getting out of Afghanistan. We were going to get out with dignity, strength. They feared us, but we shouldn't have been there, frankly. But we were getting out with dignity and strength, taking all the equipment. He left the equipment. They said, leave everything. Let's go. I said, what do you mean? You're leaving a $150 million airplane? And one of the generals told me, that's when I knew he was a stupid general, Milley. Sir, it's better to leave the plane. I think it's cost efficient. You're going to leave a $150 million plane because you don't want to fill it up with a tank of gas? These people were so stupid. But now we have General Raisin Cane. He's a little different. A little different. He's a little different. I was told by my first admiral, I had these generals, you know, what the hell, I never did it before, so I picked a couple of losers. But the first ones, they told me, sir, it'll take 4 years to defeat ISIS. And I said, how could it take 4 years? We have the best equipment in the world. Why? And I rebuilt the military my first time. I said, why would it take 4 years? They said, well, I would. So I decided to go to Iraq, and I flew to Iraq. I was extremely brave. In fact, so brave I wanted to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor. I said to my people, am I allowed to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor? And you know, I've given out so many to guys that are seriously brave. I mean, they come in with the arms are missing, the legs are missing. The stories are so unbelievable. And I said, no, it's a little stretch if I gave myself one of them. But it's one of those things. Someday I'm going to try. I'm going to test the law. Brandon, I'm going to say, let's give it a shot. Maybe I'll win in court after everyone sues me, after radical left lunatics sue me. Now watch. The fake news, you know I'm having fun. The fake news will say, Donald Trump wants to give himself the Congressional Medal of Honor. But he was rebuffed by the audience, who stood up and booed the hell out of him. Though they say that kind of stuff. It's amazing. They say, if I'm sarcastic, even a little bit, they make it sound. You know, I said one thing the other day, a little while ago, a month ago, 2 months ago. I said, I don't think I'm going to make it to heaven in front of a massive group of people, 56,000 people. And they're all saying, oh, what does he mean? I don't think I'm going to make it to heaven. I'm doing a great job for a lot of people, but I don't think so. I'm just not worthy of heaven. I'm not going to make it. And I was having a good time going, you know, I was having fun. I hope to make it. But I doubt I will, to be honest with you. A lot of you will. I'm not so sure. But I was having fun. The New York Times has a front page story. Donald Trump is now questioning his mortality. They made it like I was totally. So you can't joke. It doesn't work. Kelly Loeffler here, small business meaning big business. She's in charge of, she's a Georgia peach. She's a great one. But she's in charge of all of the small business loans. It's called the Small Business Administration. When you add it up, it's the biggest bank in the world or something, right? But she's done a fantastic job. Thanks, Kelly. To help businesses like this one expand production in the United States, we provided 100% expensing and bonus depreciation for all new equipment and capital investments, like that crane that you see back there. And it's all part of the Great Big Beautiful Bill. The Great Big Beautiful Bill is basically a tax cut bill. And you know, when you hear the fake Democrats talking about it, like, oh, the Great Big Beautiful Bill, you know, they try and mock it. We put 4 years worth of goodies into that bill, and everybody said it couldn't be done. You'd have to go into 17 different bills. It's all in that one, and that is cut after cut. It's basically tax cut and business expansion. It's one of the greatest bills ever passed. Remember that when you hear these phony guys like Hakeem, our low IQ, I guess. I mean, he's a pretty low IQ individual, but I hear him talking about no tax on tips doesn't matter, no tax on overtime matters, no tax on Social Security for our 1.8 million Georgia seniors matter. Who's the senior in this room? I refuse to raise my hand. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm a senior. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. But think of it. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime for the people working there. How incredible. And for our seniors like me, no tax on Social Security. And watch what happens. They will now say, because I just gave them an idea, that Donald Trump passed the no tax on Social Security so that he could save $1,000. Oh, they're going to find me at conflict. They're going to say, Donald Trump has a conflict. I'll pay it, okay? You know what? I don't even talk about this much. I get no credit for it. So as president, I make $2 million over 4 years, $2.5 million. I waived it. I'm the only president that ever waived it. And they never, ever talk about it. But every week, some of the scum from the New York Times will call, did he waive it? And if my secretary would say, yes, he did. If I ever said, no, he didn't, it would be a headline scandal. But you know that in the history of our country, and this surprised me because we've had wealthy presidents before, in the history of our country, there's never been a president that waived his salary. I'm the only schmuck. I get no credit for it. You know what? I get no credit for it. Nobody ever writes about it. It's the first time. We have a couple of front row Joes here. They've been to like 400 rallies. Thank you very much. Have you ever heard me even talking about it? I never talk about it. They've heard me talking about everything, but I don't talk about it. But I just did today because somebody said, you know, nobody's ever written a story about you waiving your salary. You know, it's still a couple of $1 million. It's like, not peanuts. It's estimated that these policies will help raise income in this state by $7,000 in the coming year, every year. Boost household take-home pay by over $10,000 and protect more than 200,000 Georgia jobs. It's amazing. No one knows the importance of tax cuts and fair trade more than businesses like this one. So now I'd like to ask the president of Coosa Steel, Andrew Seville, very nice name, to come up and say a few words. I'd like to say, because I'm telling you, I met this guy, and he said something that his wife is going to be extremely upset. I said, how are you doing? He said, President, if I didn't have all these cameras running, I would grab you and start kissing you violently. And I said, why is that? He said, because what you've done for us economically in this state, in this town, with the tariffs in particular. So I want to just introduce Andrew. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Coosa Steel. My name's Andrew Seville, as he said. I joined here in 2001 with my dad after I graduated from the University of Alabama. I've got to say roll Tide. I've got to. My dad bought this company in 1985. We began to diversify, add all American-made equipment. Everything you see here, American-made. We have all American-made steel. That's all we keep. In all of those warehouses, all of it American-made. So we saw the tire rack industry really dropping off around 2010, and it was tough on our racks department. It was tough on these guys you see down front, these people that are used to this heat. I'm sorry if some of y'all aren't, but this is nothing to them. But the tire rack industry was going to China. There were no tariffs. They were bringing them in.